Joined with Carolyn from the Campaign Opposing Police Surveillance, who is the person who has been doing the live tweets during this morning's hearing. Carolyn, what do you make of what was said this morning?
Well, it's interesting to be back in the hotel, and I'm really sorry you missed last week. Another 5 days of this windowless room. This morning was interesting. We had our second police officer of this round of hearings, and this one again giving evidence in person in the room with us, which means we can see his face and we can see him when he's speaking. Obviously, if you're watching this from home, you don't get to see him. It does give a little bit more information than you would just get from hearing the voice, so it's been interesting from that point of view. This guy used a lot of the same phrases all the way through, a lot of the sort of same comments about things coming naturally, a very sort of positive overall sort of attitude towards the police and his career, and how nice it is to be part of this wider police family that's been so great over the years for him.
Wow.
And it was quite remarkable how many things he no longer remembered. Even things that were quite big in the news for the general public at the time.
Yeah,
of course the police knew about, and he says he has no recollection. But the inquiry haven't really pushed and questioned him further about stuff like Red Lion Square. So the chances are we're not going to hear anything else about that. We'll see what happens after lunch, because we are going to have a little bit of time for all of the other lawyers to submit some questions which the inquiry may or may not let them actually ask in about a 10-minute window that's been allocated for it. So we'll see what happens next.
Yeah, just on that thing of things that weren't, they couldn't remember. We really must underline the whole thing about the Red Lion Square question, because it was the only time he put his hand to his face and was like, "Don't remember that. No, don't think about that." Very quickly. He's a lying bastard, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's every single person who's sat in the public gallery today has commented on his evidence and how they don't think he's being very truthful.
And he's a fucking liar. Yeah, did you find it interesting this morning? Do you think we really learned much from him generally about the methodology of how they operated and all that kind of stuff?
Well, we've got to remember with this inquiry, we're not just getting the stuff that's coming out in the hearings orally from these officers, we're also getting glimpses of all the written evidence that the inquiry is now finally publishing. Now, as you might know if you've been following this campaign for a while, we've been saying for many years that if the inquiry gave us our files and they gave us access to all of this written evidence and all of these documents the police have been storing about us and our groups, we would have been able to help them get to the truth a lot quicker. As it is, this inquiry has now cost the great British public over £50 million and counting.
Which is fucking insane.
It's still scheduled to run for at least another 4 years, if meetings, health and intellect permit. And we've not been given our files. We've had very little sight of any of the documents relevant to the infiltrations and intrusions that we suffered in our lives, because this inquiry's only got as far as 1982, which is a joke. But amongst all the bits of paper which are finally getting put up on the inquiry website, one of the ones that you can now download and read yourself today is an essay written by David Smith back in 1979 when he was at policing college. And as an essay, it sums up exactly what the attitude of these SDS officers was to the public and to the groups they were infiltrating. Spoiler alert, they didn't like us very much. The feeling's probably mutual. I'm sure none of the groups who were around in those days would have had much time for David Smith and his like either.
No, so I'm just very aware suddenly the room was cleared, everybody's starting going back into the hearing room. We are about to restart in the next 5 minutes for this afternoon's hearing, which will be the return of Dave Smith for 10 minutes, and then Roy Creamer. Any quick comments on Roy Creamer before we go in?
Roy Creamer's a very interesting character. Anyone who was listening to Rajiv Menon last week would have heard Roy Creamer held up as a fine example of how it's possible to do this sort of police work, like gathering information about anarchists and activists and what their plans are, without being completely opaque, by this sort of open method of gathering information, going along and speaking to them and asking them what they're up to and reading their books and finding out what they think. So it will be interesting to see what Roy Creamer's got to say. I think Roy Creamer, from what I've read, strikes me as the sort of man who likes to be clever and likes to think that he knows a lot about the world. So I'm dead curious to see if that's what he looks like in real life over the video screen. He's not going to be here in person at the hotel.
Yeah, Lord save us from the self-confessed intellectuals. Right, we will be back with reaction to that when it happens, which, judging by the what's meant to be happening today, means we're liable to be back with you doing a video at about 3:30. So see you then. Cheers.